There comes a point in every person's life when the noise of the world becomes unbearable. The expectations, the disappointments, the endless need to prove your worth, all of it begins to sound like static. You start to notice how much of yourself you've given away trying to be understood. You start to notice that peace is not something people hand you. It's something you reclaim by disappearing from what drains you. Becoming unreachable isn't about walls or arrogance. It's about returning to yourself after years of scattering your soul across the wrong people, the wrong places, the wrong dreams. It's about learning that not everyone deserves access to you, that your presence, your energy, your silence are currencies far more valuable than your words. I used to think strength meant holding on to people who kept leaving, holding on to jobs that starved my spirit, holding on to conversations that felt like begging for oxygen. But one day I realized holding on was the real cause of my exhaustion, because what you cling to out of fear of loss will eventually own you, and what you walk away from with clarity will free you. Think about it. How many times have you replayed conversations in your mind, trying to find the perfect words that would make someone finally understand you? How many nights have you spent wondering what you could have done differently, what you could have said better, how you could have been more patient, more forgiving, more available? The weight of those questions alone is proof that you've been carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. The truth is, we become exhausted not from the work we do, but from the emotional labor of managing other people's perceptions of us. We drain ourselves trying to control narratives we were never meant to edit. We lose sleep over people who sleep just fine without thinking of us. And somewhere in that cycle of overthinking and overexplaining, we forget the most fundamental truth. Our peace is not up for debate. So I stopped chasing closure. I stopped needing explanations. And slowly, I started hearing my own voice again. That voice didn't whisper. It declared, I refuse to break again. When you say those words with conviction, something ancient shifts inside you. You begin to see that most of your pain came from expecting empathy from those who lack it. You start to understand that love is not proven by how much you suffer to keep it alive, and that loyalty is meaningless when it only flows in one direction. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from loving people who can't love you back. Not won't, can't, because they're too busy protecting their own wounds to acknowledge yours. They're too consumed with their own narrative to see the plot holes in their behavior. And you, generous soul that you are, kept making excuses for them, kept believing that if you just loved them harder, understood them deeper, gave them more time, more chances, more grace, eventually they'd meet you halfway. But healing doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. And love, real love, doesn't require you to martyr yourself to prove its existence. The world rewards those who know when to detach. Because detachment is not coldness, it's control. It's the quiet art of staying centered while everything around you screams for a reaction. The weak shout to be seen. The strong stay silent and observe. Power is not in the response. It's in the restraint. There was a time I mistook silence for weakness. I thought if I didn't explain myself, I'd lose my chance to be understood. But then I realized explanation is a trap. The moment you start explaining, you're already negotiating your worth. And worth does not negotiate. So I stopped explaining. I let misunderstanding do its work. I let people believe what they wanted to believe. And something incredible happened. The more silent I became, the more powerful I felt, because silence is a mirror. It makes people confront themselves in your absence. When you stop defending yourself, people lose their favorite weapon against you, your reaction. They can no longer twist your words, misinterpret your intentions, or use your emotional investment as ammunition. Your silence becomes a wall they cannot climb, a language they cannot decode, a strength they cannot diminish. And in that quietness, you discover something profound. You don't need to win arguments with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And so I learned my silence is my power. When you begin walking this path, people will call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you cold, arrogant, emotionless. But what they're really saying is that their old ways of controlling you no longer work. Because when you detach, you take their power away. You stop feeding the cycle of guilt and persuasion. You stop being predictable. And in a world addicted to reaction, unpredictability is rebellion. Let them call you a change man, because you've changed. You've changed from someone who absorbed everyone's chaos to someone who protects their peace. You've changed from someone who said yes out of guilt to someone who says no with clarity. You've changed from someone who needed approval to someone who needs alignment. And if they see that as coldness, it's only because your warmth was never meant for them in the first place. Detachment isn't about apathy. It's awareness. It's recognizing that not everything deserves an answer. It's realizing that sometimes silence communicates more truth than 1,000 explanations ever could. The most powerful people are not those who speak the loudest, but those who master the discipline of stillness. I used to fear solitude. I thought being alone was proof of failure. Now I see solitude as proof of alignment, because when the wrong company leaves, you create space for the right piece to enter. Solitude doesn't isolate you. It refines you. It burns away the noise and leaves behind only what's real. The quiet becomes a teacher. In solitude, you meet the parts of yourself you've been too busy to notice. You hear thoughts you've been drowning out with other people's opinions. You feel emotions you've been postponing because everyone else's feelings seem more urgent than your own. And in that stillness, you realize how much of your identity was borrowed, performed, constructed to fit into spaces that were never designed for your authentic self. Solitude shows you who you are when no one is watching, when there's no audience to perform for, no expectations to meet, no image to maintain. And the person you discover there, raw, unfiltered, real, that's the person worth protecting. That's the person worth becoming unreachable for. You start to see the world more clearly when you stop begging to love you, and that's when you begin to understand. You were never meant to be universally understood. You were meant to be selectively seen. Because being unreachable doesn't mean you vanish. It means you rise above the frequency of manipulation, drama, and dependence. It means your peace is no longer negotiable. It means you finally realize that not everyone deserves the luxury of access to you. The world keeps teaching you the same lesson in different forms until you finally learn it. You cannot heal in the same place that broke you. You cannot grow where you're constantly explaining why you deserve respect. And you cannot be free while chasing validation from people still enslaved to their own egos. Think about the places you keep returning to, hoping for a different outcome. The relationships you keep resurrecting, hoping this time will be different. The conversations you keep having, hoping finally you'll be heard. That's not hope, that's habit. And habits, especially the ones that hurt us, are the hardest addictions to break. But here's what I've learned. When you finally walk away from what keeps wounding you, you don't just leave a person or place. You leave a version of yourself behind. The version that tolerated disrespect. The version that accepted crumbs and called a feast. The version that confused suffering with love. And yes, that departure will hurt. But it's the kind of pain that leads to freedom, not the kind that leads to more chains. There's a kind of peace that only comes when you stop participating in chaos. When you realize that revenge isn't power, indifference is. That closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide you no longer need. And that love isn't proven through pain. It's measured by peace. Every painful chapter in your life was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. Every betrayal was a mirror showing you where your boundaries were too soft. Every heartbreak was an invitation to meet yourself again without the illusion of someone else's approval. Look back at every moment that broke you. Really look at it, not with the eyes of the person you were then, but with the clarity you have now. You'll see that pain wasn't random. It was revealing. It was showing you patterns you kept ignoring, red flags you kept rationalizing, compromises you kept making at the expense of your own soul. Your heartbreak wasn't just about losing someone. It was about losing your way. And sometimes the only way back to yourself is through the wreckage of everything you thought you needed. Pain is not your enemy. Attachment is. Because pain, when faced directly, burns itself out. But attachment keeps pain alive. You can't become unreachable if you keep trying to resurrect what's already dead. And the truth is, most things we grieve are illusions. Illusions of potential, of what could have been, of who we thought someone was. But when you finally accept what is, reality becomes peaceful again. Because truth, even when it hurts, will always set you free. We fall in love with potential, and then wonder why we're heartbroken over reality. We create elaborate stories about who people could become, what relationships could evolve into, how situations could improve, and then we mourn those fantasies as if they were real, but they were never real. They were projections, hopes, possibilities we imagined into existence, because accepting the truth felt too painful. The day you stop mourning what never was is the day you start living what actually is. And what actually is, when you strip away the illusions, is often simpler and clearer than you imagined. Some people are exactly who they show you they are. Some relationships are exactly as shallow as they feel. Some chapters are meant to end, not be edited into something they're not. There's a quiet elegance in walking away without drama, in refusing to prove your side of the story, in knowing that silence is the most eloquent response to disrespect, because when you stop reacting, people are forced to face themselves. You show them a mirror of their own behavior, and that reflection is something they can't escape. I used to think forgiveness meant letting people back in. Now I know forgiveness simply means releasing the hold they have on your energy. It doesn't mean access. It means freedom. I can wish someone peace and still protect my boundaries. I can understand someone's pain without allowing it to poison mine. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's wisdom, because carrying resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So now, when I'm wronged, I don't plan revenge. I simply move differently. My absence becomes my justice. My peace becomes my proof. And my silence becomes the loudest statement I'll ever make. Revenge is exhausting. It requires you to stay emotionally tethered to the person who hurt you, to keep them relevant in your thoughts, to let them occupy space in your mind rent-free. But when you choose peace over payback, you cut that cord. You reclaim that energy. You redirect that attention toward building a life so fulfilling that what hurt you becomes irrelevant. And that's when you realize the best revenge is no revenge. It's radical indifference. It's becoming so unreachable that even your memory of them fades into irrelevance. There's a line between being kind and being consumed, between compassion and self-betrayal. I learned that saying no is not cruelty. It's clarity. That boundaries don't make you distant. They make you real. Because love without self-respect isn't love at all. It's servitude. And no soul was born to live in chains of approval. So I whispered to myself, my kindness has conditions, not because I become bitter, but because I finally understand that unconditional love is not sustainable in an unhealed world. You must love yourself enough to protect your peace from those who thrive in chaos. Because the more you respect your boundaries, the more life respects you. Your kindness should not be unlimited access for people who have no intention of reciprocating it. Your compassion should not be a green light for people to take advantage of your empathy. Your understanding should not be permission for people to continue disrespecting you. Conditional kindness isn't cruelty. It's consciousness. It's knowing that you matter too, that your energy is finite, that your time is sacred, and that not everyone has earned the right to waste either. To be unreachable is to stop playing games with your energy. It's to walk away the moment peace feels expensive. It's to choose silence when your words would only feed misunderstanding. And it's to accept that sometimes losing people is part of finding yourself. People often ask, don't you miss them? The truth is, I don't miss who they were. I miss who I thought they were. And once you accept that difference, nostalgia loses its grip on you. You stop romanticizing your own suffering. You stop craving validation from the very people who created your insecurity. You stop reaching for what keeps cutting you. There's a version of every person that exists only in your mind. The version that listens better, loves deeper, shows up more consistently. And when the real person doesn't match that version, you feel betrayed, not by them, but by your own expectations. The hardest lesson I've learned is this. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. If they haven't done the inner work, your depth will intimidate them. Your vulnerability will confuse them. Your consistency will exhaust them. And no amount of patience on your part will change that. So when you catch yourself missing someone, ask yourself, are you missing them, or are you missing a version of them you created in your imagination? Because once you can distinguish between the two, you'll find it much easier to let go. There's a deep calm that arrives when you no longer need to defend your peace. You become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you stop needing warmth from unreliable fires. Your energy becomes rare. Your silence becomes sacred. Your peace becomes your highest form of wealth. And one day, when you've mastered this art of stillness, someone will ask, "What happened to you? You don't seem to care anymore." And you'll smile, not out of pride, but understanding, because you'll know they're seeing the version of you that survived the storm, the version that stopped apologizing for outgrowing people, the version that learned how to let go without hate, how to love without attachment, and how to exist without needing to be understood. You'll realize that peace doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you've stopped needing perfection to be at peace. That maturity isn't about age. It's about emotional self-control. And that healing doesn't always make you soft. Sometimes it makes you silent. There's a certain power in no longer explaining yourself, in letting people wonder, in allowing misunderstanding to exist without feeling the need to correct it. Because the people who are meant to understand you will, without lengthy explanations, without constant reassurance, without you performing your worthiness. And the people who don't get it, they never will, no matter how much you explain. So save your breath, save your energy, save yourself. This is the psychology of becoming unreachable. It's the transformation from needing to prove to simply being, from reacting to observing, from chasing to attracting. It's the slow, quiet evolution of the soul that's finally learned that peace and power can coexist. And once you've tasted that balance, you'll never settle for chaos again. So if you're in the middle of your breaking, remember, this pain is not your punishment. It's your purification. Every piece that falls away is making space for the version of you that won't flinch, won't beg, won't break. You're not losing people. You're losing illusions. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. And clarity is what the world fears most. Because clarity cannot be manipulated. It cannot be guilt-tripped or emotionally blackmailed. It sees through the disguise, the narrative, the performance. Clarity is what makes you unreachable. When you become clear, you become dangerous to those who profit from your confusion. You become a threat to those who rely on your self-doubt. You become impossible to control for those who built their power on your insecurity. And they will try everything to pull you back into the fog: guilt, nostalgia, false promises, temporary changes that never last. But once you've seen clearly, you can't unsee. Once you've tasted freedom, you can't go back to chains, even if they're gilded. So as you walk this path, remind yourself, you owe no one an explanation for your healing. You owe no apology for your peace. And you owe no access to anyone who still confuses your kindness for weakness. Whisper quietly to yourself, I am unreachable, not because I'm cold, but because I'm complete. And when you reach that state, when your peace becomes louder than your pain, the world will no longer have power over you. It will try to provoke you, test you, tempt you, but you'll simply smile because you'll know the truth. Power is not found in control over others. It's found in control over yourself. And that's when you finally become what the world cannot touch. A calm mind in a loud world. A steady flame in the middle of the storm. A presence that speaks without words. You'll walk into rooms differently. You'll speak with a new economy of words. You'll laugh without performing. You'll love without losing yourself. You'll exist without constantly checking if others approve. And in that existence, you'll find a freedom most people spend their entire lives searching for. Because here's what they don't tell you about becoming unreachable. It doesn't make you lonely. It makes you selective. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you calibrated. It doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. You learn to distinguish between isolation and solitude, between being alone and being lonely, between protecting yourself and punishing others. You'll realize you don't need to prove your worth anymore. Your peace will prove it for you. So walk quietly, love deeply, detach gracefully, and protect your peace like the crown it is. Because in the end, the goal was never to be loved by everyone. It was to be at peace with yourself. And once you've found that peace, you've already become unreachable. Not unreachable in the sense that you've disappeared from the world, but unreachable in the sense that the world can no longer shake you. Drama cannot disturb you. Manipulation cannot move you. Guilt cannot grip you. And chaos cannot claim you. You become like water, fluid enough to adapt, but powerful enough to carve through stone with time and consistency. You become like air, essential but invisible, present but untouchable. You become like fire, warm to those who respect your boundaries, dangerous to those who try to cross them. And in that state of being, you finally understand what it means to live authentically, not performing for an audience, not editing yourself for approval, not dimming your light because others are intimidated by your brightness, just existing fully and unapologetically as exactly who you are. This is your invitation, not to become cold or closed off, but to become conscious of where you place your energy, conscious of who you allow into your inner circle, conscious of what you will and will not tolerate, conscious of the difference between being kind and being used, conscious of the power you've always had but kept giving away. So take it back. Take back your power. Take back your peace. Take back your life. Become unreachable, not as an act of aggression, but as an act of self-love, not to hurt others, but to heal yourself, not to build walls, but to build a life so fulfilling that you no longer need external validation to feel worthy. And when you finally arrive at that place, that sacred space of inner peace and outer strength, you'll look back at who you used to be with compassion, not regret, because that person, the one who stayed too long, loved too hard, gave too much, that person was doing the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. But you're not that person anymore. You're the one who learned, who grew, who chose themselves, who became unreachable. And that, my friend, is the most powerful transformation of all.